Hello, good morning. We are going to continue with Two Under the Indian Sun. Timmy got to it yesterday. Anyway, it's snowing here this morning. Ugh, I'm so sick of the snow. I can't even tell you. And I just hope it doesn't snow all week because I can't I can't handle this. I need sun and warmth. Okay, I am thinking about going on a low carb diet lifestyle. So if any of you do low carb, send me your thoughts. Now, the main reason is because diabetes runs in my family, as does cancer and heart disease, and what else? Oh, Alzheimer's, dementia on both sides. So I've just been looking through the studies and seeing that specifically a keto diet seems to perhaps help with all of these things. I'm not sure, what is going on with is the Atkins diet the same as a keto diet? I'm struggling to see the difference, but all I know is that when I try to just search on the Google about keto, there's so much information. And a lot of it is in conflict with one another, and it's so overwhelming. And then it's like, you got to get into ketosis, and I'm like, what? And then it's like, you're gonna lose muscle mass, and I'm like, I don't want to lose muscle mass. And oh my god. Okay, anyway, those are my thoughts. I might just go old school Atkins, because at least all the information is just there and succinct and what have you. Okay. Hold on. It's the rabbit. One second. Okay. Yeah, so those are my thoughts and my reasons why. So I'm thinking about it. God, I keep on messing with my hair. It's so fluffy. I thought I would read now because I am going to go donate plasma after, and I need to eat something. I need to drink a couple liters of water before I do all that. And yeah, so let me see if I need the glasses this morning, because I'm really trying not to use them. Okay, let's keep going. I know that this book, I don't think as many are watching this book, which honestly, I had wanted to read this for a long time, but I hesitated. Timothy, why are you so unwieldy? He's going to have some kibbles. Okay. Yeah, not as many are, man, it's low light in here, so we've got, the quality isn't very good. But anyway, I didn't figure so many would watch this, because it's unknown, right? People know the Royals. People know, obviously, Jackie Kennedy. People know Haley Mills. So I think we might get more with those types of books. But it's fun to go off the beaten path. There are so many people that have interesting stories to tell that are not famous, right? Although I would argue that if you wrote Black Narcissus, it's pretty incredible. So, trying to think if there's anything else. There's not a whole lot that's new. I'm feeling better today. I feel more like myself. I had a good sleep last night, and yeah. Hold on. I've got some nails in the mail. I'm going to show you the ones that I'm going to put on later. One second. Okay, so I had purchased a 5-pack of nails, and they're just random, like you don't know what you're getting, which I enjoy. I think that's fun. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see in this light, like the light sucks. Maybe if I take them out of the packaging, because then you won't get the glare of the little cellophane. Oh no, that's a lie, because they're in cellophane. Does she have a brain? We don't know. Okay, so these ones came. Oh, yeah, great. I'm so glad you can see them. Okay, they're pink, and they've got like a little line of like rose gold sparkle. And so what I do, here's my tip, okay? 'Cause I don't want to claim being poor. I am but a student. So what I do is I buy these packs of nails. You can literally find them anywhere. You can go to the dollar store. I will literally buy dollar store nails, okay? If they are slightly translucent, you can use a gel glue and a UV light. And I love doing that. Or just get like a really good false nail glue. And then I use a gel builder gel on top of them. And it makes them look like I got them done. It's adding that builder gel that makes all the difference. So that's what I love to do. I love to so I got these ones. And I mean, I didn't pick them. They just arrived. But these are cute for spring. They got the little flower on the ring finger. These are the ones that I'm going to do this week. So, hello. Yeah, they're just like a classic French tip. But I love them because the French tip isn't too white. It's more like a cream. And I like that. When they're glaringly white, I take a pink or a beigey color of a gel polish and do a couple coats over top because when they're so stark white, I think they look cheap. So anyway, those are my favorites. And then I got like 2 sets of Christmas ones. So I'm going to save them for Christmas, and me and my eldest are going to wear them. So I thought that would be cute. And what else? I get paid tomorrow. I've never been so happy to be paid in my life. I mean, I'm sure I have been, but for some reason, it's like I'm running out of everything. But going to the hospital all the time is killing me. Hospital parking, it's killing me. But I just found out that you can get a week pass for $20. So that's what I'm going to do from now on. Because it'll be cheaper for me. What else? I just thought I would try to give you an update because everything else, every other day that I've been reading, I've been like, I've just been crying. I've just been sad. So yeah, that's a little better of an update. Okay. Now what time is it? All right. Let's get going. So we left off where she was talking about like all the holidays that they were celebrating that are Hindu or Muslim or just, and then she says, but for us, the most important day of the year was Christmas. Christmas in Narayungaj was not like Christmas anywhere else. To begin with, for our family, there could be no ordinary Christmas shopping. Everything had to be bought through our mail order catalogs, though now and then a boxwala, peddler, came, sent out from a shop in Calcutta. It made a stir when a boxwala came up the driveway, carrying his box on his head, and was invited on to the veranda to show his stock. Pinned inside the lid were cards of buttons, cards of hair slides, ribbons, needlebooks, while the trunk itself was filled with lengths of cheap cloth, household linen, towels, tablecloths, doilies, and handkerchiefs, dull things to us. The tray, though, held a fascinating motley Everything from combs to pincushions, pencil boxes and crayons, cheap fountain pens, tape measures that sprang back when they were pulled out, and small cheap toys. You don't want those, Aunt Mary said as we picked up different things, but we did want them. Perhaps only for the sake of buying. None of us, though, had much money, and very often the box wallet packed up and went away without having sold anything to any of us. There was no decorating of house and rooms. Ma'am did not like paper chains. Sometimes Ma'am is a little bit of a bummer. And she's obsessed with the girls, apparently. She just loves them so much that even her husband apparently feels lonely and a little bit of an outcast sometimes. But, girl, you don't like paper chains? No, sorry, girls. No Christmas decorations because I don't like paper chains. But they're not for you. They're for the children. Anyway. Ma'am did not like paper chains. And Holly and Ivy were far away from Narayangaj. Is that how you pronounce it? As were Christmas trees. The only one we ever saw was at the club party. Fa's idea of the Christmas holiday was to go away on a duck shoot. That man's never happy unless he's killing something, said Aunt Mary. Which was, of course, not quite true. We hated to see the small, soft bodies, their heads aligned in the shooting brace, as they were cast down on the veranda when he came back from one of his shooting expeditions. But then we, as did Aunt Mary too, enjoyed game pie, wild duck, snipe on toast. A duck shoot, though, could be a holocaust, and Christmas was one time when Fa did not get his way. He was defeated by us children. Our idea, as with most children everywhere, was to have Christmas at home, and as exactly like all other Christmases. Oh, I see. And as exactly like all other Christmases there as it could be. It began conventionally enough on Christmas Eve with the hanging up of stockings, long colored cotton ones borrowed from our borrowed from our dancing fancy dresses. Guys, I don't know if it's her or me, but sometimes I get really tongue-tied with this writing. The sight of their knobbed shape hung on a ribbon from our bed rails meant that Christmas Day was here at last, but usually we woke so early with excitement that in the dim dawn light, the ribbons did not show their Christmas red, and we had to lie for what seemed like hours, only looking at the stockings until Hannah came along the veranda and we were allowed to jump up and claim them. Morning tea was early because on Christmas Day we did what we did not do in Narayangaj on any other day in the year. We went to church. They never went to church. Though not in the church, in the Masonic Lodge, to which a Church of England padre came in a white cassock. Timmy, don't. He just wants to be a mischief maker today. Well, every day. Okay, so the padre in a white cassock. And khaki topi. The Christmas service always seemed queerly out of place in the bare, whitewashed Masonic hall that still had its old pul punkas, and it meant little to sing once in Royal David City and hark the herald angels sing at 8 o'clock in the balm and the sun of Bengal cold weather morning. Christmas for us did not mean a crib and carols. It was tangled in our minds with the coral colors of pink oleanders in full bloom then, and with the scent of violets. The Masonic gardener grew pots of them, and with the stiff little buttonholes, one rose or one marigold in a frill of maidenhair fern which he presented to all the congregation as we came out. Hoping for baksheesh, said Fa. There were two highlights in our Christmas Day. The first was the family present giving when, after an almost unbearable wait, shut in Fa's room while Ma'am, Aunt Mary and Fa hid the presents, we were let out to look for them all over the garden. Parcels would be up trees, in the middle of bushes, behind bamboos, under flower pots, tied to the swing, and when, breathless, we had collected them all. Man, they're using the word orgy a lot. Have Have you noticed that? This is the third time in the last couple readings. Someone else is writing. One of them took over, and they like the word orgy. Okay. There would be an orgy of wonder as we open them. There was an orgy of play in the bathtub. There was an orgy of something else. I don't know. Ribbons were not wrapped in fancy papers. Hold on. Okay. I told them you're going back to your burrow because... Okay, so presents were not wrapped in fancy paper then, nor tied with ribbons, but the plain brown paper and string was quite as exciting. This treasure hunt, though, did not come directly after breakfast. There was a long wait to be gone through first, a ceremony for which we had to be washed and combed, and the 2 hours or more for the getting and the giving of the dollies. A dolly is not a doll. It came from the Hindu word dali, meaning an offering or a gift. It had become a custom, and custom had built up a ritual for it. The dollies were not handed out in the offices. They were presented with Indian courtesy, which meant that every giver had to call personally and make his salams. The salam had become a catchphrase from old Anglo-India, but it has a deeply courteous meaning. An Indian does not shake hands unless he is westernized. He dislikes public contact with other people. An Indian parent will lead a child, not by holding its hand, but delicately with a finger and thumb by the wrist. Instead of a handshake, he uses the namaskar. The namaskar. The graceful movement, which means to take the other's dust upon you, hands joined together as if in prayer and raised to the forehead or to the breast according to the rank or honor of the person saluted. Indian children touch their parents' feet in homage. Okay, so this guy, that looks like my professor walking by. So this guy I dated years ago. So he came from like a very traditional Hindu family, and like when all the family would come by, like he'd have to like go around and like touch everyone's feet. And when his father recalled him home because he was so aghast that he was dating a white girl, my friend who's from Bhutan, she was like, "Oh, Shannon, that's for the best. Can you imagine having to go around and touch his family's feet every time you entered the room?" I was like, you know what? Not that there's anything wrong with it. It was just, like the absurdity of the culture clash would have, yeah. His family anyway, because they were mean. They were mean to him. Very dysfunctional family. Okay. Let me see. It is always an act of greeting and respect, and from early morning on Christmas Day, the contractors, merchants, and head office staffs had been driving about Narayunganj and crossing the river to call on their Christian employers and clients. Fa and Ma'am received, as it were, on the roomy front veranda where chairs were arranged, a carpet spread. Azad Ali announced each visitor in turn. Perhaps it would be one of Fa's own babus, resplendent in snow-white muslin shirt and dhoti, colored socks and sock suspenders, patent leather pumps, or it might be a merchant, usually rich and dressed in a cream silk akan, marigold-colored turban and fresh scarlet tikka mark on his forehead. The merchants would often bring their children, little boys and girls in European clothes, but wearing earrings and hats like velvet pillboxes embroidered with gold. We would be told to take them and show them our toys, but they were usually too shy to come with us and would only stare with their big dark eyes. The ritual was always the same. Fa was garlanded, then Ma'am, but after a minute the long necklaces of jessamine or marigold flowers were taken off and coiled on a tray held by Abdul. Abdul, of course, had to be in on this. And as time went on, the pyramid of garlands grew into a scented mountain. The caller was seated, and lemonade, fruit juice, and sweets were offered, and usually refused. 5 minutes were then spent in conversation, during which the baskets were carried in, put at Fa's feet, and politely ignored until the moment arrived in which to thank for them. Then here comes the cat. Dollies were always in light round baskets with the sort of... Hi. Okay. Hi. I know what you want. I know you just want a new can of food, but you have food. I see it. I just fed you. Okay. Dollies were always in light round baskets of the sort coolies use, but now decorated with flowers and sheets of colored paper. Sometimes there was only one, sometimes 2 or 3, their number depending on the richness of the giver and the importance of Fa's patronage to him. Sometimes it was in genuine gratitude for help in the past year, but the giver knew, as Fa knew, as everyone in India knew, that there was a code of strict limitation on the cost. In the old days, dollies were often bribes, and such fabulous bribes that no government employee was allowed to accept one. This suspicion of bribery still hung over them, and anything gold or silver, even children's bangles, was immediately handed back. There could be none of the exquisite gauze and gold thread saris or scarves that came from Benares. A bottle of whiskey or a length of plain silk was the utmost limit. The foundation was always fruit. Red apples from Kulu, bananas, sometimes the whole stem of them, was carried in and set beside the basket as an extra. Papayas, pomelos, like big pink flesh grapefruits, tangerines in silver paper, boxes of dates and nuts. To one side would be a Christmas cake, florid with shop icing, which we thought wonderful compared to our homemade one. There would be a box of chocolates tied with ribbon, sometimes 4 boxes of chocolate, one for each of us, though we would not be allowed to keep them. And there were Indian sweets, jalipis or sandesh. Crackers and toys were poised on top. We children had to thank for them. The caller airily waved his hand and said, "They are nothing, nothing," though they must have cost him many rupees. He then made way for the next visitor and went on to pay his next call. For the Marwaris and Babus, it must have been an arduous and expensive morning. For us children, it was a training in patience, obedience, and generosity. Though Fa got dozens of dollies, we were never allowed to have any of the things in them for ourselves. As well as a time for getting, Christmas is a time for giving, said Ma'am. You must not only learn to give, you must love giving. Oh, isn't that interesting? What a good philosophy to instill in yourself and your children. You must not only learn to give, you must love giving. Oh, ma'am. Yes, said Ma'am firmly. And as soon as the last tikka gari or carriage had driven away, we were all 4 sent into the dining room where Hannah and Abdul had been busy unpacking the baskets and arranging pyramids of fruit, platters of sweets, rows of cakes, piles of crackers on the dining room table. The toys were heaped on the floor, the empty cracker boxes set ready. While this was going on, a shuffling and rustling, whispering, giggling, and sniffling had been growing on the back veranda. The noise grew louder and louder until Azad Ali clapped his hands in a signal, and the droves of the servants' children came in. All of them, including the Dobies clan, now mysteriously swelled to double size, but Ma'am never sent any of the small gate crashers away. Some of the children we knew because they lived in the compound. Some, like Azad Ali's, came only at Christmas. Some were enemies. There had been scuffles and ambushes. Some were friends. Nitai's son could fly our kites better than we could. But now it was as if we had never met before. We of the back veranda were quite as ceremonious as our elders of the front, And though there were, of course, no garlands, the children gave us salams, which we gravely returned. Joey. All right, I'm not in the mood for a stare down right now. My friend. There you go. He's so fussy. He wants what he wants, and if his food is not the type he wants, he'll like pick at it and then he'll just come and stare at me. The protocol was strict. Azad Ali's big girl and small boy stood nearest the table, they in clean shirts and trousers, she in a salwar kameez, the loose tunic and trousers with a little gauze head or breast scarf worn by Muslim and up-country girls. Govin's and the gardener's children stood apart because they were Brahmins. The girls exquisite in saris, jessamine flowers in their hair, the boys in clean muslin, patent leather shoes on their bare feet. The Dobi's children were everywhere, some of them dressed only in a charm string and short cotton jacket that left their rice-swollen stomachs and private parts bare. The babies wore nothing at all except charm strings. Far over by the door stood Nitai's son, and behind him the smaller boy who came to pick up the crow corpses. This protocol was not a Faz and Mam seeking. Were we not often companions of Nitai's boy? But we knew that now, as an untouchable, he must keep apart, just as we knew that the gardener's children must not be given fruit or cakes or sweets. They would not be allowed to eat them because non-Brahmin hands had touched them, non-Brahmin shadows had fallen on them. Not only non-Brahmin, untouchable, because by Hindi ruling, we, as Western children, were untouchables as well. We parted first with the fruit and nuts. These were tied swiftly into the corners of saris or dhotis, or collected by the Dobi's wife into an old pillowcase. The Dobi's wife always fascinated us because she had elephantitis. I think that's what it is. We stared at her gargantuan feet and ankles. Then each of the children was given an empty cracker box, or its lid to hold. These were filled with sweets. The boxes of chocolates were ripped open or given whole to a family. Then the Christmas cakes were allotted, and this was done in the unfair way of the world. The largest and best cakes to the richest children, the worst to the neediest. But Ma'am always kept a collection of inconspicuous pink iced cakes to help fill the maws of the Dobis and their friends. At last came the moment for which everyone was really waiting, the distribution of the toys. Here again, the rich had the best. Azad Ali's daughter, the most splendiferous doll, the Dobi children, the collection of celluloids, but immediately after came the crackers as consolation. Crackers were always divided equally. People say crackers are expensive nonsense. They should have seen those children with them. Aye, murmurs broke out all over the room. The big eyes grew bigger. Brown faces broke into smiles. The small brown hands holding the cardboard box trays trembled. Those crackers would be kept long after the things inside had been taken out. The gaudy fringed papers, the least tinseled star, be made a treasure. Then the ritual was finished. In a few minutes the last child had salaamed and scurried away, and the baskets were picked up empty. Once again, everything was gone. Can't we keep that darling little doll, one little basket of cooking pots, one box of chocolates? But we never could. The answer was always the same, and, however reluctantly, we had always to be complete little lady bountifuls, though Hannah sometimes had literally to prize a drum of Turkish delight or box of chocolates out of Rose's hand. One set of presents, though, Fa and Mam could not refuse for us. Of all the servants, excepting perhaps Hannah, we loved Guru the best, and he loved us, all four of us. How much we were to discover one Christmas day. To an Indian servant, with his pittance of pay, every anna, every pice is precious, probably vital. Yet on that Christmas morning, Guru appeared with 4 long boxes made of that peculiarly thin, matte white, and rather damp cardboard of which doll boxes used to be made. Inside them were 4 large, jointed, and elaborately dressed dolls. Their clothes were glued on, not sewn. Their shoes were paper. Their hair ended under their chipped straw hats, and their eyes were fixed, not opening or shutting. In fact, they were cheap dolls, but not for Guru. They must have cost him at least his whole month's wages. Even Rose was struck dumb, and made none of her usual blunt comments, while "He must have spent £1," said Nancy. To her, £1 was an enormous sum of money. Fa and Mam were in a quandary. They could not make the money up to Guru. That would have been an insult, and would have made nonsense of his present. But what is he to live on? Asked Mam. It is good to think we had the grace to treat those dolls with reverence, partly because of Guru, and partly because they were not the sort of dolls one could play with, being too artificial, and they stayed intact for many a long day. Christmas is usually marked by a feast of eating and drinking, but not for us. There were no traditional hams where we were, no turkeys. We had a goose, which we children would not eat. It had been tethered near the cookhouse for weeks, and we had fed it, unknowingly helping to fatten it. Mam and Aunt Mary made a Christmas cake until we all stirred. Wait, why did I say that? Which we all stirred. It was... Oh, sometimes my brain just takes over. It was iced with homemade-looking icing. They made mince pies, and we had a Christmas pudding, tinned. But the only unusual treat, the one to which we looked forward, was the crystallized fruit put on the luncheon table, as if for a dinner party. We were allowed 6 crystallized cherries each and 1 large fruit. It was agonizing to choose between a candy pink pear, a dark green gauge, or one of the deep gold globes of peaches. After lunch, it was time to dress for the club party, the second highlight of the day. We hated most parties, even Nancy, who was far more friendly than the rest of us. When we had to go to them, John was stiff and gloomy, keeping as much as possible in the background. Rumors showed off, and Rose refused to take any part in the proceedings unless her coat was kept where she could see it all the time. Because she's ready to go. Nancy simply vanished, and would later be found off-scene talking to the Indian conjurer or helping the servants to wash up. The club party was different. On Christmas Day, the club was open not only to Europeans, but to Eurasians and Anglo-Indians if they had children to bring. Imagine, this is what always baffles me. So imagine you are an Indian in India and you are not allowed into a building, because you're Indian. Crazy. The Eurasians must have been a shock to both sides. In fact, she did say earlier that Eurasians were hated more by Indians than they were hated by the English. So to be mixed, the Indians hated you more. I'll just leave that there. Okay. Long tables were set out on the lawn for tea. From bamboo poles, enormous paper crackers were hung. When tea was over, they would be burst open with a stick, and a shower of parched rice and gimcrack presents. What? Presents would rain down on the children beneath, like a piñata. There was always a special cracker filled with pice, annas, and 4 anna bits for the ayahs, but Hannah was too dignified to join in the scramble. Good girl. Sometimes it turned into a fight with 2 ayahs fighting and tearing at each other's veils. Isn't that awful and how exploitive? Here's a piñata basically full of money, and then we're going to make you pick it up off the ground. Do that for children maybe, but not for grown women. Maybe just give them a bonus. Gross. Okay. There were games on the lawn with everyone joining in, but we, Jon and Rumer, were not interested in the tea or the crackers or the games. For us, the party, besides the Christmas tree, of course, meant only one thing: talking to the Laforts. Who are the Laforts? Our second cold weather, a new police sergeant came to Ganj, to the small stone bungalow down the road from us. He was an Irish Anglo-Indian, Sergeant Major Lafort. Mrs. Lafort was the prettiest, plumpest, most luscious woman we had ever seen, and she had a train of lusciously beautiful children. From our roof, we could look into their garden and watch the wonderful games they played and the wonderful times they had. In fact, looking down like God, it could be said we knew every hair on their heads, especially of the two eldest girls. Girls about the age of us, Jon and Rumer, but very different from our humdrum selves. They had names that were romantic, Iris and Dawn. There were also Diana, Trevor, and Terence, Amelie or Enid. We never knew which. And the baby, Sugar Love. Sugar Love! That's quite the name. All the family had blue eyes, the color of aquamarine, skin of an unmistakably dusky peach. Perhaps they had a strain of Armenian in them, and dark curly hair. The smaller ones looked like cherubs. Anyone could see how incredibly beautiful they were, how lively and unusual, but, and this was the cruel but, we could only watch. We were not allowed to play with them. They were Anglo-Indians. There was the danger of the accent, too. Okay, so they're of English descent, but they are Indian. Like, they're not Indian in the sense of that they are mixed, but they are English-speaking. Like, they've been in India so long, but I think that's what it means, from my understanding. There was a danger of the accent, and too, Fa and Ma'am had to think of the opinion of Fa's office babus and colleagues. As we had found with Nana, Indians were even more standoffish with Anglo-Indians than the British. The paradoxical effect of the taboo was that it was to us, the Godden children, that a feeling of inferiority was given. We were quite sure that the Laforts were infinitely superior, though they did go barefoot outside, the house as well as in. They will get hookworm, said Hannah, and blew their noses with their fingers like Bengalis. Oh, see, like they're of European descent, like they're white, but they have more Bengali customs, and they live more like Bengalis. Our rooftop telescopic eyes had seen them, and we remembered Nana's story about the toothbrush. It did not seem unlikely. They had a freedom we were denied. They were allowed to go where they wanted alone, no attendant, Hannah or Guru, and they bought food out of the bazaar, cramming their mouths full, and they fought each other over bags of peanuts and sticky Indian sweets. When the sweet seller came round with his dirty stand and a little tinkling bell. Our relation with the Laforts was a lover's fairy tale one, because we were allowed to meet them once a year at the club Christmas tree, when all barriers were lifted. We not only met, but were free to talk and play, strike up a friendship all the more fervent because it would inevitably be nipped next day by Hannah, Aunt Mary, or even Ma'am. When for another year we could only watch the Laforts wistfully from our rooftop, think about them, weave stories around them until Christmas came again. At first, talk was not the right word. There was a whole year of estrangement to overcome, that hideous barrier to be knocked down. But from the moment our two families arrived at the club party, we were conscious of one another. We in our picturesque, old-fashioned frocks, Iris and Dawn in their Calcutta-bought dresses, which were so much smarter. Sometimes they made loud, pricking remarks in strong chi-chi or she. Sometimes we pretended to be indifferent until at last, "Go and talk to them," Jon would command Rumer, who instantly retaliated, "You're the eldest." We knew that in the same way Iris would be commanding Dawn retaliating, but we were burning to talk, and soon, in some nonchalant, contrived accident, at tea, or picking up presents under the rice shower, or bumping into one another in a game, a word would be said. Then a few charmed sentences, which became a burst of warm friendship. Come, sit by me. Let's sit together. Be my partner. Or come, don't let's play. Let's sit and talk. Torrents of talk were unleashed. No barriers were mentioned, and it was always together when dusk fell that, for the biggest moment of the day, we went into the long room of the club annex for the Christmas tree. It was a proper Christmas tree, not a fir. Its witch balls and tinsels, its gilded angels blowing trumpets, were kept from year to year and probably were tarnished, but from the floor to the ceiling it shone and shimmered with candles that lit the red and blue and emerald and silver with a softness and richness that no electric light can give. At the tree tip was a huge silver star, and from floor to ceiling, too, were gifts, not trash, but handsome presents. The bachelors of the town paid for the children's Christmas tree. There were minutes of intense suspense, longing and thrill, wondering which box or parcel or unwrapped present was to be ours as we waited to hear our names called, and then went bashfully up to get a present from a dressed-up Father Christmas with a voice that was unmistakably Dr. Owen's. We did not know who chose the presents, but perhaps for us, Ma'am was consulted because they had a way of being exactly what we wanted most. Fa drove the little ones, Ma'am, Hannah, and all the presents home in the trap. We older ones walked home with Aunt Mary in an exalted giddiness. We never went in tika garis, they were thought too dirty, but the Laforts drove past us at a great rate, all 9 in one gari. They waved and cheered. We waved back unreproved. It was a strange kind of Christmas, but perhaps in that Narayanganj bazaar we were in a way closer to Bethlehem than in the bells and revelry, the eating and drinking and tinsel of England. The humble, dim-lit interior of the huts we passed might have been the stable cave. A sari might have been the line of Mary's veil. A woman's voice singing a low, little nasal lullaby, the voice of any other mother in the East. The oil lamp on the floor was the same shape as the lamps they had in Bethlehem, a carpenter working late by its light, his brown arms glistening as he planed a piece of wood, might have been Joseph. And there were always an ox kneeling and ruminating in the shadows, sometimes the quick, pattering sound of donkeys' hooves. We, of course, saw or thought none of this. It was all too familiar, and we were tired with an intoxication of satisfaction and happiness. We only knew that we had talked with the Laforts, had wonderful presents, and that the circle of light from Guru's Look, it was such a beautiful ending, too, and okay, let's try that again. Had wonderful presents, and that the circle of light from Guru's Booty, forget it, was leading us safely home. Okay, what time is it? I just have to give myself enough time to get pretty, and but I think I'm looking better today. I don't know. I was looking pretty rough the past couple days, so anything's an improvement. I was going to stop there, but I butchered that ending so badly that I feel like I should keep going. All right, let's see how long this chapter is. I'm so hungry. This is not a long chapter. Chapter 5 is entitled Cain, as in Cain and Abel. It was Nana who had told us how the beggar boy in the bazaar came to be deformed. In his thin back, the shoulder blades were pointed in a hump, while his twisted legs seemed to grow out of his chest. They made him like that, Nana said, as if it were a normal explanation. They take babes when their bones are soft and twist them. Twist them? We were nearly sick. Then bind them so that they grow in that shape. My God, how cruel, said Nana. But she did not sound shocked. But why? 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 To get money. People give because they are sorry. But didn't his mother? Oh, she didn't do it. She must have sold him, said Nana. Sold him? Then do people sell babies? Rumer was shocked. You know they do, said John. You've read Uncle Tom's Cabin. But that was years ago. This is now. Now, here. we might have said. The boy always lay in his cart, a box on wheels. Just by our bazaar temple, his head had grown too big for the poor little body and lolled as he looked vacantly at the crowds. I don't think he understands much, poor boy, said Ma'am. I hope he doesn't. His mother, or the woman we thought was his mother, outlined his eyes in kohl, and the black edges made them look bigger and more beseeching. She whined beside him in her dirty rag of a sari. There was a man with a withered leg who hopped with a stick, and a leper whose nose had been eaten away, and who held out a hand with fingers gone. This is India, Ma'am might have told us, a land riddled by disease, filled with poverty and starvation. They make people suffer and do cruel things. When people hurt animals, it was almost worse, and that went on day in, day out. The flock of goats and kids being driven to the butchers, the bullock humps rubbed raw under heavy wooden yokes, the way the drivers goaded their teams, twisting those sensitive, helpless tails. Buffaloes, water creatures, had to toil all day under the burning sun. The Tikagari ponies had sores too and were so thin that their ribs and backbones stood out. Their eye sockets were sunken. Newborn kittens were thrown on the rubbish heap to die, and crows came down and pecked their eyes out. I hate people, said Jon. Rumer somehow could not hate people. Everyone can get nice, she liked to think, even if one shrank from them in the beginning. Her favorite story was Beauty and the Beast, but Jon was more cynical. Did she not herself hold our own kittens out over the deeps of Fa's bath? They're frightened, Rumer said. Only for a little while, said Jon. I'm not hurting them. She was a little bit of a sociopath. Then why? I don't know why, but I like to feel them clinging to my hands. You see, I'm beastly too, Jon said. Oh, she was. Rumer did not want to be beastly. She shrank from the least thought of it. But she did something far more cruel than Jon, although unwittingly. Unwittingly was the right word. Why didn't you use your sense, said Aunt Mary as Rumer sobbed. How was I to know? We had been given 4 rabbits. Okay, good thing Timothy's away, because this could get ugly. White ones with pink eyes. They hopped about and lived in a long run with 4 hutches and grew tame, especially one called Betty, who belonged to Nancy, and Connie, who was Rumer's. One day, Betty in her separate hutch produced 4 young. Something none of the others had done. Why Nancy's rabbit? We older one asked at once. At first the babies were squirming and pink, not much more interesting than worms, but in a trice it seemed they were delicious little hopping balls of whiteness with swan's down tails and ears lined with shell pink. Mine, said Nancy in a glow of pride. Now she had 5 rabbits of her own, 4 of them, these entrancing young ones. It was not fair, and one early morning Rumer went into the run and caught Connie by her ears and shut her in the hutch next to Betty's, and then removed 2 of the fluff young and gave them to Connie. Triumphantly, Rumer shut the hutch doors and was rooted to the spot. Connie sniffed at the babies with her twitching nose. They squeaked. Oh, dear. And suddenly, before Rumer's horror-struck eyes, Connie changed them from a soft-furred, nibbling, cuddlesome rabbit into... No, Connie changed from a soft-furred, nibbling, cuddlesome rabbit into a fiend, a white, sinewy arch of fury with blazing red eyes, and, set close together, 2 of the longest, sharpest teeth Rumer had ever seen, which tore and mangled the babies to bloody pulp. Bits of fluff and flesh were tossed to the hutch roof and stuck on the netting. Blood and tiny entrails were stamped into the straw. Blood spattered the hutch walls. Once only Connie lifted her head and glared, a baby's ear and half its cheek dangling from her jaws, her whiskers red. Rumer gave a terrified cry and fled. She was a buck, stupid, a he-rabbit. Don't you know that? Then why was she called Connie? Sobbed Rumer. You called her that. Why didn't somebody tell me? They might have told me. Someone might have told me. But no one sympathized. In fact, Rumer was punished. It was quite wrong of you to take Nancy's babies from her rabbit and give them to yours, said Ma'am. It was stealing, and we have had enough of your jealousy. But Rumer did not care about the stealing and jealousy. She cared about the hideous death she had brought on the baby rabbits. Being stupid and ignorant, it seemed, could do as much harm as being wicked. Oh, that's another good line. She's whoever's writing now, I think they go back and forth. She's been spitting a couple truths here and there, hasn't she? You see, everyone's horrible, said John. But why? Why do we have to be? John could not answer that. Indeed, why do I do it? Why? She often wept after a tantrum. What makes me? Why did she hurt the very people she loved most? And hurt begat hurt. She even drove Fa, who never punished us, to interfere so that he did an unfair thing, so unfair that we boiled with indignation. On John's birthday, he and Ma'am gave her a riding whip, a beautiful little whip with a silver butt and scarlet tassel. But next time John was impossibly rude, Fa whipped her with it. The whip stung, but the injustice stung more, and John sobbed for an hour in the bathroom where she had hidden herself behind the dirty clothes basket, while the rest of us waited miserably in the nursery. We knew that sometimes she deserved a whipping, but not with her own whip. Oh. One hot afternoon in the nursery, she and Rumer started to wrangle. Suddenly, John lost her temper and picked up the first thing that came to hand, the iron on the ironing board, and hurled it at Rumer. Oh my God. And you know what kind of iron that is? Like, it's an iron. It's not like today's irons. Like, that is a, The iron was fortunately cold and too heavy for John's hand. Most of her impetus was lost, and it only hit Rumer on the leg above her ankle, but that was bad enough. Rumer collapsed on the floor, bent double with pain, clasping her ankle. Blood from the gash ran over her hands. She could only moan, but John, when she saw the blood, started to scream, and in a minute, Ma'am, Aunt Mary, and Hannah were there. As white as Rumer, John had to watch while Rumer was carried upstairs to Ma'am's room, and then waited by Ma'am's curt order alone in the nursery until Dr. Owen arrived and went upstairs. She didn't really hurt me, Rumer lied. As soon as she could speak, she didn't mean to do it. John was not punished. Ma'am knew that the sight of Rumer stricken on the floor, the ugly gash, the way she had to hobble for weeks, was punishment enough. But Ma'am and Dr. Owen spoke very seriously to John. You might have broken Rumer's ankle. If the iron had hit her on the head, it could have killed her. And why did you want to throw it? Asked Ma'am. I didn't want to. Then why? I don't know why, wailed John. Hannah had a simple explanation. It's Cain, she said. Though he was a grown man, Guru was the one person we had always... Oh, sorry, I skipped pages. I'm like, this is strange. This is the sudden strange of... It's Cain, she said. Cain? The mark of Cain, she quoted. The Lord set a mark upon Cain. Cain killed his brother, said Hannah. And she said, all man's is Adam, all women's is Eve, except the Blessed Virgin Mary, of course. And all of us is Abel, and all of us is Cain. Oddly enough, that was comforting. It sounded dramatic, too, and we both had a high sense of drama, perhaps planted in us by Nana. There was often drama in the cruelty around us, in fear, love, jealousy, greed. As there was drama in love, war, and religion, said John. Religion even made people hurt themselves. What else but religion impelled men and women to walk all the way from Bengal to the holy city of Hardwar, far north on the Ganges, hundreds of miles away, measuring their lengths on the ground with every step they took. We had stood at our gate and watched a woman doing this, stepping, falling full length, rising, stepping. She was panting, her face and body streaked with sweat, her dark red sari filthy and torn, her hair dusty and hanging over her face, while her eyes looked as if they were fixed and were as bright as if she had a fever. She is a pilgrim, very holy woman, said Guru. She did not look at all holy, not at all like a pilgrim. In fact, it seemed to us thoroughly silly. Even more silly was a sadhu who sat in a shrine above the river and who had held one arm up in the air so long that it had stiffened there and withered. Very holy man, said Guru. What good does it do? John demanded. We knew God exacted some surprising things from those he had chosen, but surely he could not want any man to do that. God want, said Guru certainly. Of course, the Hindus believed that madness was holy. There was a mad woman in the town who was harmless but went about naked and singing. Once she got past Guru and came and sat on our veranda and put Rose's topi on her head. The servants tempted her away with sweets, and she went peaceably, but the topi had to be burnt because she was full of lice. People were kind and patient to her, a poor mad woman, but they were often unkind to ordinary people. You mustn't fight, don't quarrel. We were always being told by grown people. They fought and quarreled all the time. Don't be jealous. They were jealous. Don't tell tales. They told tales. You must never tell a lie. Grown people told lies continually. Ma'am's calling box outside the gate told one. Mrs. Godden not at home, it said when she was there in the house or garden. To say not at home, Ma'am told us, was not really a lie. It was a phrase that people understood. But some of the lies were real. For instance, Azad Ali had a serious law case. Litigation for Indians is an almost irresistible temptation and ruins thousands of people every year. On the propaganda posters, litigation is shown as a crocodile with wide open jaws and great teeth in the act of devouring a man. Something certainly was devouring Azad Ali. He seemed to have shrunk. He no longer commanded, and he did not bully Mustafa, who looked almost as perturbed as he. We saw Azad Ali crying as he came out of Fa's room. Well, he is losing a crore of rupees. That's a lot of money. Abdul told us. A crore is 100 lakhs, said John, which means 10 million rupees. Azad Ali couldn't have as much as that. A lakh then, said Abdul. Azad Ali will lose a lakh. He did not add, Allah be praised, but that was what he meant. Yet Azad Ali suddenly rallied. His size, his air, all his importance came back. Mustafa cheered up too as the familiar scolding started again. It's all right now, Azad Ali told Fa. How could it be all right? I have succeeded in briefing some excellent false witnesses, he told Fa, and not too expensive either. To bear false witness was to lie. It was forbidden in the commandments, yet no one punished Azad Ali. On the contrary, he won his case. They must have been excellent false witnesses. He took a week off to go to court, and then there he was, back behind the teapot, behind Fa's chair. That was puzzling enough. But the case that came nearest, right into our hearts and minds, was Guru's. Though he was a grown man, Guru was the one person we had always admitted to our play, who was in all our plans, bound up with them, taken for granted. Guru is a sacred name, whether meaning teacher and master or cow, and how a humble gatekeeper came to have it we never found out. He was a strong, thick-set, and very dark Hindu, and wore the company's official red turban, white dhoti, and khaki shirt, with a crossband with the company's name on its brass clasp. His work was to guard the gates, to open them for the family and visitors to come in and out, to censor the slip gate, take in letters and parcels, carry Ma'am's notes, and to do any errand in the bazaar. That at least was supposed to be his work. What he chiefly did was to play with us. Where we went, he went too, on official or illicit trips to the bazaar, on the river where he crouched behind Rose, holding her by her frock while keeping an eye on us, up on the roof to play hide-and-seek or fly kites. If we ran out of Anna's for new kites, we borrowed his. He built us rafts to float on the tank, helped us lug the Dobie's Gamalas, great round earthenware pots that we used as boats to the tank. We floated Nancy out on one once, and we could not get her back. We had to stand helpless on the bank while the Gamala eddied round and round in the middle of the deep water with Nancy precariously balanced. Guru could not swim and had to fetch Govind, who could. We were sent to bed for that. It was Guru who built the jumps for for our circuses, made up Swiss Family Robinson houses in the trees. He crawled through drains with us, doubled under arches, wriggled over the grass. He let himself be operated on in our play hospitals and gave us his only white shirt to dye when we made dye from the yellow flowers on the creeper by the cookhouse. He was one of us. But a day came when, "Guru isn't playing properly," said Nancy, and we had to admit it. When we came to think of it, Guru had not been playing properly for a long time. A change had come over him. He was no longer concentrating on the important business of the day, choosing a kite, building a mud village, making an aerial railway in the trees. He was absent-minded when he was with us, and often absent in person. Not there when we wanted him. We would come down from our afternoon rest and find the door of his lodge padlocked. Guru was out somewhere, or, as Nancy reported, he was hanging round the servants' quarters, something we had never known him to do before. People had to open the gates for themselves. Anyone could have stepped in, and there was no one to drive away the chakras, urchins from the bazaar who loved to lie in the road and look under the gates. "Where is Guru?" Ma'am asked, and reluctantly she said that she would have to report him to Fa. Then one morning we came back from our ride. We saw that there was a woman in Guru's lodge. We saw her dimly through the doorway before Guru could shut the door. "A lady in Guru's house!" Rumer was astonished. "She isn't a lady," Jon said. "She's not much more than a girl, but she's cooking." Jon meant cooking like a wife. "But Guru has a wife in his village," said Rumer. "We knew that some men in the East could have more than one wife. Look at Solomon," said Jon. But Guru was no Solomon. Besides, he was a Hindu. It was puzzling. Usually we told Ma'am everything, but this we kept to ourselves. Perhaps we sensed even then that there was something secretive, unseemly on the air. Nancy, as usual, knew more than we did. The girl was Natai's daughter, the daughter of our old sweeper, sister of our friend the sweeper boy. "She's been in Guru's house 3 days," Nancy said, "ever since Natai went away." Natai had gone back to his village near Lucknow for a court case about some land. It was very inconvenient, but Ma'am had to let him go, although he'll be gone for months, she said. His wife, our Mata Rani, was to do his work while he was away. Sorry, I feel like I'm so invested. I'm like, oh, what is going on? My voice is even quieter, I've noticed. We knew that Natai had a daughter, although we, Jon and Rumer, had seldom seen her. To us, she had been only a slim figure in the background of Natai's hut, who drew her sari over her face if anyone came near. "It's a good thing that she's Mrs. Guru now," said Nancy. "Natai used to beat her. She would cry for hours and hours." But the servants did not seem to think it a good thing. They were uneasy, yet they too said nothing. As long as the house ran smoothly, Ma'am and Fa did not inquire into the private lives of their staff and interfered only reluctantly, and for a long time they did not know the girl was in the lodge. Later, when Azad Ali, the head of the household, was reproached by Fa for not coming to him, Azad Ali wept and said that he had not liked to trouble his sahib about such a small thing. "Much trouble coming," Abdul told us with relish. "You wait until Natai come back. That girl, she far too beautiful. A young Rani, she trouble men." And he smacked his lips and rolled his eyes. He could have said more, but Azad Ali heard him and kicked him out of the bottle khana, a proceeding we approved of on the whole. Azad Ali, when questioned, would only shake his head and purse up his mouth disapprovingly. "Guru caste Hindu. Woman, sweeper class," was all Hannah would say. But she did her best to keep us away from Guru. We refused to keep away, and were often round the lodge because we were glad for Guru's sake. Even to our fond eyes, he was not romantic, being squat and dark, while Abdul was right. The sweeper's daughter was as beautiful as a queen, tall and fair. There she was each morning behind the hibiscus hedge that screened the lodge door, sweeping up a basket of twigs and leaves to light Guru's fire, cooking on his small clay chullah, and serving his meals to him. They smelled savory and good, and we noticed that she made chapatis instead of serving rice. She isn't a Bengali, you see, said Jon. The young woman washed the platters and bowls under the tap behind the hedge, and then went to sit on a low stool there to comb and oil her hair. If anyone came in at the gate, or even down the drive, she would jump up at once and go inside, into the darkness at the back of the room where no one could see her. We knew she was there, though, by the gleam of her bracelets, and the small ring in her nose that caught the light as she breathed. She never went out. The days grew into weeks, a month, 2 months, and then one day there was a baby girl born in the night. We saw her, tiny, fair-skinned like her mother, but wrinkled, with small eyelids that looked like shells when she slept. Dark wet plastered down. Why is it wet? Because she's so new, said Rumer. Said Rumer, who knew about babies. Jon knew about babies too, and at last she said thoughtfully, "It makes 9 months to make a baby. That woman's only been in Guru's lodge a little more than 2. Again, there was something not right, we thought, puzzled. An uneasiness. Uh-oh. Oh, dear. Okay. Again, there was something not right, we thought, puzzled, an uneasiness hanging in the air. Ma'am knew now and conferred with Pa. You must do something, we heard her say. But before Fa could do anything, it was over. Next morning, the girl was gone, and the baby. It was Nancy who came rushing in to tell us before we were dressed, but Aunt Mary caught her. How dared you go out? Ma'am told you not to, she said. You are, all of you, to keep in the nursery and the far garden. None of you is to go near the gate. She refused to tell us why, but we would not be fobbed off like that and went to Ma'am. What has happened? Where are they? We demanded to know. Where's the baby and the girl? Where is she? And then Ma'am told us. She is dead. Dead! We were stunned. She died in the night, said Ma'am, gently and pitifully. But young girls did not die in the night just like that. We had seen her yesterday. She had smiled at us, and then, faintly as from behind a cloud of sleep to us, Jon and Rumer, came the memory that, in the night as we slept, we had heard a rumpus down below in the dark, that Fa had shouted, then gone downstairs, of the telephone ringing. Something happened, said Jon. Tight stretched, as she always was, began to tremble. Something happened to Guru in the night, she cried to Ma'am. What was it? What was it? After a moment's hesitation, Ma'am told us 2 older ones, the truth, or part of the truth. Nitai had come back and, finding his daughter in Guru's house, had beaten her so viciously that she had died that night in the hospital. And the baby? Asked Rumer. The Mata Rani has taken it to look after. Perhaps it will live. And Ma'am said gently, poor girl. Her father was very cruel to her. She must have fallen in love with Guru because he was so kind and gentle. And he with her, even though he knew she was having a baby. He was so loving, said Ma'am. We nodded. Did we not know how loving he was? You must try not to think about it, said Ma'am. We must try, all of us, to put it out of our minds. Who could put it out of her mind? All day a hush lay over the garden. And not only over the garden, but far beyond, over the bazaar. It was quiet. People talked in whispers. The servants did not talk at all, but went gravely about their work. Even Abdul had nothing to say. The young inspector of police and Sergeant Major Lefort came and went. Constables in their khaki shorts and shirts, puttees and hobnailed boots, their brass-plated leather belts and scarlet turbans guarded the house and kept the crowds outside the gate away. None of us was allowed out, but only Rose played. The worst of it was that Guru had run away. Run away and left them, said Jon. But he didn't run far, only to get help, suggested Rumer. Nitai is so big. twice as big as Guru, and he has such gray mustaches. I expect we would have run too. Guru was caught. He came back, hoping perhaps to fetch a few of his belongings. The policemen hid themselves and let him come in, then pounced on him and took him away. The policemen hid themselves, took him away, and soon man broke it to us that Guru had been put in prison. In India, seduction is a criminal offense. When we asked about Nitai, we were only told that we should not see him again. I knew it. I knew what was coming. I knew it. Okay, you tell me if you knew. It was Abdul who told us the rest. Nitai had beaten the girl to death because he was jealous, insanely jealous. I told you. The girl much too beautiful, said Abdul and whispered, that baby, Nitai's. But his own daughter, said Abdul, and smacked his lips again. That's what that means. We did not understand then the full meaning of what Abdul said. We only knew we hated the way he had said it. And by an unspoken pact, we did not speak of it. We who were such gossips, and we never told man what we knew, but we shall never play again, commanded Jon. We did play, of course. But though a new gatekeeper came to live in the lodge, to control the gate and carry Mam's notes, to accompany us on the river, do errands for us, we never played with him. Never went and sat, Indian fashion, on our heels to talk to him as we had done with Guru. The Mata Rani, in the quiet acceptance of Indian women, kept the baby. That woman is a saint, we heard Aunt Mary say. Though it too had been hurt, it miraculously survived, struggling into life with the tenacity of a blade of grass forcing its way through a minute crack in the stone, as green growing things survive in India. Rumer begged Mam to give it vests from our put-away baby clothes. Nancy found a doll's blanket, and Jon said she would name the baby Gulhima, perhaps, which means rose, or Tara, a star. Before we left India, she had grown into a fat, tiny girl, able to stand with enormous eyes, black curls, and the promise of beauty as great as her mother's. She was a laughing, gay child, unstained, untouched by her dark history, or her mother's violent death. But ever after this, Jon and Rumer had an awareness. Two breathing in little antennae had caught every wind, each new violence. Where the sun is brightest, the shadows are dark, and the misery and poverty that is so much a part of India continually broke through. Poverty, misery, ignorance, and the perpetual strife. When we were in the hills that year, the old enmity between Hindu and Muslim flared up in Narayanganj, resulting in an orgy of looting and killing. We knew of this because when we came back, Abdul told us of the carnage in our familiar bazaar, and we overheard Mam reading Aunt Mary a letter from Fa, in which he told with anguish the fate of a band of Hindus returning on one of his steamers from a pilgrimage. He had met the steamer at the Ghat and tried to persuade the pilgrims not to land until he could arrange a police escort for them, but to stay on board, where he and the Sarang could guarantee their safety, although the crew were Muslims. They had refused to listen and surreptitiously slipped ashore, though they knew they would have to pass through a Muslim part of the town to reach their homes. They walked away from the Ghat, down an apparently deserted street. Suddenly the street erupted, knives flashed out, and before Fa could reach them in a few minutes, every one of the pilgrims was dead. We knew without being told that in India death was as casual as life, part of every day. The sickly, sweet smell of death was as familiar to us as the sight of some small corpse, pie, dog, calf, cat, or cow, not taken away, but left to die and scent the air until it disintegrated into dust. Disease and suffering were not hidden decently away, but displayed in the road beyond our gates, there for everyone to see. Death could often be sudden and violent. A cobra bite, for instance, could kill in half an hour. And you turn blue, said Nancy. Ma'am always kept in the house or in her bag, if we went out, a small wooden vial of anti-snakebite serum. One end of the vial opened up to reveal a sharp knife. They slash the bite open so that it bleeds and bleeds and bleeds, said John, which lets the poison out. Sometimes they cut off your arm or leg to save you. Indians were always having accidents. There were such swarms of them, and their thin clothes and bare feet made them vulnerable. Their wickerwork huts easily caught fire, and they did not understand the power of machinery. Lost toes and hands on the sawmills got caught in the jute presses. They were always having their feet trampled on. With their heads muffled up against the evening chill on winter mornings and evenings, they did not hear motors coming and would get run over. They would even sleep in the middle of the road, when, on dappled moonlit nights, they were extraordinarily difficult to see, and were so run over again or driven over by traps and tikagaris. They were perpetually getting ill with pneumonia, tuberculosis, abscesses. The tank pools of their villages were often stagnant and bred mosquitoes. One or other of the servants was always coming to Ma'am, shaking with ague? I don't know. We sympathized because we knew malaria. John in particular often had it. The only remedy was the quinine, which we dreaded because of the insane buzzing it gave us in our heads. The Indians died like flies of all these things because they had no resistance. Hindus, when they are dying, ask to be laid on the earth. If they can die on the banks of a river, it is holy. The Ganges best of all, but then any river by intention can become the Ganges. We were used to seeing little groups of people sitting round a dying man or woman or child on the riverbank, cooking meals as if it were a picnic, gossiping while they waited for the death. It seemed pitiless for those last dying gasps to be exposed for anyone to see, and to the hot sun, the flies, and noise. Did the poor sick people not long to go back in the dark? But they think holy, said Hannah, and the relations having carried them all the way there, where, after death, they had to be burnt, would never carry them back. When people died in their homes, they were still taken to the river, carried on a bamboo and palm-woven stretcher, their bodies covered with a cloth, but the head left uncovered, sometimes turned sideways so that they looked as if they were sleeping. Sometimes the stretcher was put down at the side of the road while the bearers stopped at a tea house for a bowl of tea. Nobody minded. A pyre would be built on the river bank, built of logs stuffed in the cracks with dry hay, grass and twigs, and quicker to catch fire. The body was laid on the pyre, and, if the family had enough money, ghee, melted butter, would be poured over it, but ghee was scarce and expensive, and usually a little paraffin would be used instead. The eldest son, or grandson, perhaps even a brother, but always a male, would take a torch and set it to the head while the priest chanted prayers, and quickly the flames would catch and begin to leap up. We knew the smell of burning flesh. The priest prayed. An earthenware pitcher was broken so that death would not come too quickly to that particular family again. And it was all over. On the third day after death, the men relatives would come back and collect the bones and ashes in a vase or bag that would be given to the river. Babies and little children were never burnt. They were wrapped in red cloth and floated away on the river, lying on little rafts decorated with flowers. Or else they were buried, but after any death, everything had to be done quickly because of the climate. Why are you so covered in dandruff, Joey? When anyone European died in Narrayunganj, the whole Western community would leave what they were doing. The men their work, the women their homes. The works carpenters would make a simple coffin, and everyone would go into Dhaka for the funeral. The Indians had a profound respect for these dead from overseas. If a coffin had to be brought across the river, it would be placed on the prow of the launch, and the steamboats would silence their engines. The country boats still their paddles as it passed. The Muslims had their own graveyards, a stone placed at the head and foot of each grave to show how big the dead person had been or how small. Death always seemed to make people smaller. The tiny mounds under the width of sky, the pinpoints of iron from the pyres on the bank, the loneliness of a baby's water cradle as it floated away, soon not to be seen on the wide river. Would a crocodile eat it, or would its body be taken down by the currents? Doesn't matter, said Mam. The baby no longer needs its body. Where is the baby? We did not know anything about the Muslim heaven, but we assumed they had one. Every other religion seemed to. We had seen pictures of the Hindu one, Krishna playing his pipe in a garden of roses and dancing girls. But Hindus believe, Mam told us, as Buddhists believe, that we come back over and over again to live another life. A better life, said Mam, a holier one. Goodness, how holy you must be in the end. That, said Mam, was the idea. And if you were not good, you came back as something lower, like an animal or an insect. That, of course, started us off. A lion. It would be splendid to be a lion. A bird. John wanted to be a bird. Nancy liked insects. I want to be an insect. Rose, what would you like to be? Me, said Rose. You can't. You have been you. I will be me, said Rose. Hannah said Rose had the right idea. Rose would always be Rose, because as Christians we would not come back to earth. We would go to paradise. Or hell, said John. But Hannah looked grieved and quickly touched us. No, you good children, paradise, said Hannah. Mam endorsed this, but rather less certainly. You know that Jesus rose from the dead, and so shall we, but we do not know how. But Hannah knew. You'll be a little angel, she assured Rose. I'd rather be a flea, said Nancy. Rumer went through agonies of fear about death, not for herself, but for the two props of her existence, Mam and John. Mam would be called from dinner with the news that Rumer Baba was weeping, and would be greeted by wails of, You're going to die, Mam. I know you're going to die. Can't you shut up, said John, who was sleepy. No, I can't. I can't. We all have to die, Juggins. That's it. That's just it. If Mam, what happens then? Wailed Rumer. And to Mam, you and Hannah and Govan tell us things about Jesus and paradise, and Brahmo and fleas, and things that you don't really know. Why doesn't God tell us? Rumer demanded. What Mam said then was such sound sense that it has stayed with Rumer ever since. If you tell a newborn baby, that it is going on a journey, said Mam, a journey to England or to America, it wouldn't know what you meant. Its mind and brain are not capable of taking it in, but it voyages safely all the same, and it arrives. That was usually true. Rumer stopped sniffling. It's the same with us, said Mam. If God did tell us, we wouldn't even understand. Our brains are too small. Even Foz? Asked Rumer, shocked. Even Foz, said Mam. Only now and then to some very holy people does God show a glimpse of what happens. The rest of us are like that blind, unknowing baby. It can't understand, so it trusts to its father and mother. Then one night, you can't trust them, said John. Mam sighed and went away, and Rumer was silenced. There was a thought that came up like a sour hiccup, came up between us and Mam. The thought of Sally. Sally was Foz's fox terrier. With us, it seemed always to come back to animals. Animals were so helpless. So it seemed for children. Sally was run over one day in the bazaar. Mam, who thought she did not want a dog, was always good to them, carried her home, and the vet was sent for. A gentle, small Bengali we knew well because he had treated our ponies. Sally's leg was broken, high up near the hip joint. Foz shook his head and did not answer our anxious questions, but he helped the vet to set the leg, which was encased in a plaster of Paris. It will mend in time, the vet told us weeping children. And after giving Sally an injection to help the pain and leave her sleeping on the bed in Foz's room, he went away. That night, John woke to hear Sally whimpering. The sound came clearly up the stairs and seemed to fill the house. The injection must have worn off, thought John. The vet must be sent for at once. Aspirin from Mam's cupboard might help. Then, as John sat up in bed, we heard Fa coming softly along the veranda and going down the side stairs. There was no mistaking his tread, even in bedroom slippers. It would be all right now. Fa would know what to do, and John lay down again. The revolver shot woke Rumer and Aunt Mary. The brief, sharp sound was shockingly loud in the night and seemed to go on and on. "We'll never trust you again," Jon told Fa when she and Rumer faced him the next morning. I'm sorry. Ma'am tried to intervene. "Your father knows best," she said. "He was right. Poor Sally couldn't have got better." "Yes, she could. The vet said so. She was in great pain. It was better this way." "It wasn't. If you broke your leg, wouldn't you bear the pain to live? Would you want to be shot? It's your fault too, ma'am. You forgot your lead." "Don't talk to your mother like that," Fa shouted. "I put Sally out of her misery." "You killed her because you couldn't bear to hear her crying," Jon told him, and she said wildly, "You should have asked her first." "Don't be ridiculous," Fa said with coldness, and to Ma'am, "That's enough. Take them away." Sally's was only a small death, but it broke our unquestioning faith in Ma'am and Fa. See, isn't that, there's always this moment in your childhood where suddenly your parents, like the veil is broken, the veil is rent. "All of us is Abel," Hannah had said, "and all of us is Cain. Cain through fear, laziness, carelessness, or ignorance, or desire for titillation. Even Fa and Ma'am, even Jon herself, though she so hated suffering, even stupid, well-intentioned Rumer. And we all had to go on living with one another, even loving one another." "Then do we have to forgive people?" asked Jon. She felt she could never forgive Fa. Okay, we're going to stop there because I have to go get ready to donate my plasma. Okay, thank you so much for being with me. I will probably be back later on today. And yes, let me know what you're thinking. Those of you who are actually watching, if you get to this point, let me know how you like it. Okay, I'll see you very soon. Bye.